Boy Manila, Pope here. We are back with another gaming review, and this time we will test out the performance of the Redmi Note 14 Pro 5G. Can it handle the games that we usually play? Let's find out. Let's start with competitive titles. First is Mobile Legends. Its default settings are set to high frame rate paired with high graphics quality. Since super frame rates and ultra graphics are available, we will bump it up. Even with the maxed available settings, we never encountered any performance issues. The gameplay was smooth with no stutter or frame drops, and the lowest FPS that I have encountered while playing Mobile Legends was 86, which is great. However, the device did feel a bit warm after one game. So for Mobile Legends with super frame rates plus ultra graphics, we get about 86 to 92 FPS. Next up is League of Legends Wild Rift. In its opening sequence, we encountered some stutters and freeze frames. For its settings, it is set to quality by default with 30 FPS. Let's max out its settings. Let's set the frame rate to 120 with high graphics quality and medium resolution. As for its gameplay, we get a smooth performance with no stutters. As you can see, we are maintaining an FPS that is above 60. There are no frame drops during clashes, which is great. The only performance issues that I encountered with this game was the opening part. So, for League of Legends Wild Rift, the 120 frames, high graphics quality, and medium resolution, we get 77 to 88 FPS in clashes and around 116 to 120 out of combat. Next up is Call of Duty Mobile. By default, its settings are set to very high graphics quality and very high frame rate. Ultra frame rate is available, however, you can only pair it with low graphics quality, so we will use that settings. For its gameplay, we did experience a smooth performance with no stutters. However, this device did struggle to maintain a smooth 60 FPS. Despite that, our gaming experience was good with little to no problems at all. So for Call of Duty Mobile with the ultra frame rates and low graphics quality, we get about 57 to 61 FPS. Now let's move forward to graphically demanding games. First is Wuthering Waves. Settings are set to the lowest and paired with 60 frames. Despite the low settings, we get tons of frame drops during combat, especially when there are tons of animations on the screen. But in exploration, that is not the case. I would recommend avoiding combat if you want to maintain a high FPS, but expect its performance to be inconsistent when you get into combat. So for Wuthering Waves, with the lowest plus 60 frames, we get about 34 to 43 FPS in exploration and around 23 to 34 FPS in combat. Next up is Zenless Zone Zero. We will also set its settings to lowest plus 60 frames. In Overworld, when roaming around 6th Street, we get about 27 to 31 FPS with a bit of stutters, while in Luminous Square, stutters are more prominent with FPS of 20 to 25. Unfortunately, I can't recommend playing ZZZ on this device, especially if you are going to do endgame content, since when in combat, its FPS dips drastically. During our combat, FPS ranges from 9 to 30 FPS depending on the animation that are on the screen. I would only recommend using this device for daily since you might not enjoy its overall performance. So for the lowest plus 60 frames, ZZZ runs around 12 to 24 FPS in combat and 25 to 33 out of combat. Lastly is Genshin Impact, with the same lowest plus 60 frames. We experience a much smoother overworld exploration than the first two games. Inside the Abyss, during combat we get a smooth animation with no frame drops or stutters. Even when switching characters and using their ultimates, there are no noticeable performance issues. Compared to the first two games, this is much more enjoyable to play on this device. So for Genshin Impact, with the lowest plus 60 frames, we get about 34 to 44 FPS in exploration and around 38 to 41 FPS during combat. Overall, the Redmi Note 14 Pro 5G is a good device for your mobile gaming needs. It did an impressive job of handling the overall performance of all competitive titles that we tested. However, for graphically demanding games, you get an inconsistent performance. But if you are only planning to play dailies on those gacha games, then the Redmi Note 14 Pro 5G is not a bad option for a gaming smartphone. So that is our gaming review of the Redmi Note 14 Pro. What are your thoughts about its performance? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you will be updated with our future contents. Also, don't forget to visit manilashaker.com and follow us on FB, X, and TikTok for more tech news, reviews, and comparison of the latest devices. Once again, this is Pope with Mabuhay Manila.